Oh, thanks for coming. I'm really happy to be here to talk about lessons that I've learned during big rewrite projects. So this talk is drawn from my experience working at Songcake. Songcake is a live music platform that notifies you when your bands come to town and lets you buy tickets. So I used to work there for many years and had a chance to run 3 big technical changes and rewrites. Oops. There's always... Oops, sorry. Is too small or too big. I think that's fine now. Cool. So yeah, 3 different projects for very different products. So the first one was for Songcake.com. Can you hear me all right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good. In 2011, so Songcake.com was I'm feeling it's gonna go again. A monolithic application. So we did a rewrite to split into front-end and services. And then the other 2 happened when Songcake merged with another company, and we inherited lots of great things, but also a rewrite from scratch of a ticket store that was in progress, and an internal tools system that they had that needed a lot of help. So I had done a talk about Songcake's first rewrite project, the Songcake.com one. So this talk was a continuation on that theme, and it has another title. Who knows who these charming men are? Yeah, a couple of people, great. So the title is Big Rewrite Strikes Again, and the band is The Smiths. So if we can forget about this guy, if possible, and concentrate on this lovely, lovely guy, because as Johnny Morris said, the Smiths were never about hate, they were always about outsiders finding a place to belong. So let's focus on that and reclaim their music. So I'll use their song titles throughout the talk because they fit really well with this theme. And Songcake is a music company, so it fit well. So I'll use them throughout the talk. And if you know them, you can get a playlist at the end. Cool? OK. So I'll talk through the problem, why you need those big rewrite projects, how to start it, how to run them, how to finish them, and then, most importantly, in the end, how to never need that kind of project ever again. Cool, so let's start with the problem. Yeah, everyone here is really great at their jobs. They're really good software developers or whatever testers, the roles that you have, and you build great products. You're writing really good code, right? Really super maintainable. But somehow, even with that, our code seems to have an inevitable path to disorder and growing way too much and getting way too complicated. Why is that? Well, here you shipped a new product to production, your customers are using it, they might be super happy, and you consider that project finished, right? You move on to the next one. But really, the code only finish when you're not running that in production anymore. In the meantime, it will be forever changing. It will be growing because you're adding features, or you're fixing bugs, or even if you don't touch it or don't change anything, other things around you will change. So you're going to grow, hopefully, the number of users, so you need to scale it and change it. Or the infrastructure and the frameworks and the APIs that you use change, so now you need to change your software. And all that time, the software entropy, so the disorder in your software, is growing. If you disregard that entropy, you accumulate lots of features and dependencies until it's too hard to make any changes. So in the case of that ticket store and internal tools project that I mentioned, there were a lot of features. There were no clear abstractions in the code and no tests or very few tests. So that made it really hard to understand and make any changes. And then the Songcake.com was actually on the other side of the spectrum. There were a lot of abstractions. It was over-engineered. It was hard to change. There were a lot of tests, and they were slow to run. So that also made it really hard to change. Sarah May used this metaphor to explain code like that. It's like a hoarder's house, both the under and the over-engineered ones. You know that there are some useful things in there that you need, to get access to and change, but it's hidden by all the mess and all the stuff that you accumulated throughout the years. And it's really hard and risky to change anything. So you know that there's something that you need to do, right? You need to declutter that house. You need to move away all that stuff because that house is too dangerous. If only you could throw it all away, declutter everything, right? Start with a new set of furniture, everything will be better, right? You know it's a big project, you know you need a lot of time and a lot of support from the rest of the company to do that, but if you can do it, everything will be better. So, congratulations, you're about to embark on a big technical rewrite project. But before you do that, please ask these 2 questions. Is it the right time, and is it the right reason? So there's a point in time where it pays off to invest in maintainability, and maybe before that, it might be worth focusing on getting your product to market faster and understanding whether it's valuable or not quicker. So we call that at Soundcake the two distinct product development phases, discovery and delivery. So during delivery, the goal is to learn as quickly as possible and validate your hypotheses and your ideas and to discover that product or feature market fit. Once the value is proven, you're like, this is great, people like it, you do product delivery. During this phase is that at that point, you're focusing on stabilizing and making sure that the code that you have is easy to change and extended confidently and easily. So during product delivery, it's when a good investment, and a timely planned rewrite could be useful. It only makes sense to invest in a big technical project like this if the product that you're changing or the system that you're changing has a proven value to the business today. So is it the right reason? So before you go ask for time to work on this project and potentially pause adding any new features or changing anything externally facing to your product, make sure that you have a clear reason for doing that. And that's not just an exercise in technology. So first, find a business case for your project. If you're unsure how, spend time with business stakeholders and the other people in your industry or the industry that you're working for, and try to understand what value technology brings to that industry and to that context that you're working in. And then you can use that knowledge to articulate how the current legacy system that you have is preventing that from happening. So once you have that, then maybe you have a clear business case for your project. If you can't explain that reason for that rewrite to someone outside of the technology team, then you don't have a good enough reason yet. So keep digging and keep trying to find why that system exists and how and why you want to make it better. So yeah, is it the right reason? Yes, if there's a clear business case. We're not hired to just deliver code, right? We're hired to deliver value and to deliver something for the company that you're working for. So first, understand where that comes from. Okay. So now you know what value this project's going to bring. How can you get, the business on board? So by that I mean, how can you get whoever decides how time and money is spent in your organization to give you what you need in order to run this project? So first of all, how to sell it, right? Have one clear business case, repeating myself here, but yes, luckily you already have that. You did your homework, and it makes sense for others outside of technology. The thing to highlight here is that it's one business case, so there's going to be lots of decisions that you need to make during this project. So having one clear reason why you're doing it will help you prioritize the work and make decisions. So create excitement on what this great new world will look like. So as I said, it's not a technical project only, right? So it's not just about making the code not bad or fixing slow tests or upgrading some libraries. This is about what you'll be able to do once this project is done. So make it about how this project is going to be a transformation to your business and what you'll be able to achieve at the end. Find allies in other departments that help you advocate for this project. So I'm sure they are as frustrated as you by the lack of change or the slowness of change. So they'll help you advocate for your project once they understand how that's going to help them do their own jobs better. So find allies. Another way to sell it is to make the pain visible. So there's this expectation mismatch between how easy a small code change should be in this legacy system and how actually really hard it is. And you know that because you've seen the code, right? You try to do the change, you try to work on it, and you know it's hard. But for everyone who's not that close to the code, either because it's not their area or their management or leadership, help them understand that mismatch between how easy things should be and how easy it actually is. So I did a diagram for that ticket store and internal tools application at the time on a Google drawing. It was, red boxes and lots of squiggly lines when things were complicated, indicating the legacy projects. And then I had green boxes indicating the projects were slightly easier to maintain or were easier to maintain. And it was just a little bit more detailed than this one. It was really simple, but it was just a visualization of all the different systems that we have and which ones were easier to change, and then the ones that we could focus our immediate goals on, and the ones that were harder to change and why we wanted to make them better. The other good thing to make the pain visible is using metaphors. So I already mentioned the hoarder's house one, anything related to maintaining something that decays with time, so gardening, personal hygiene, urban planning. You can find a metaphor that will work for the business that you're in, that will really help and resonate with the people that you're working with. So yeah, do repeat yourself. So it's not going to be after one magical half-an-hour presentation like this one that you'll get everything, all the buy-in that you need to do this project, right? It will take persistence, and it will require you to repeat the message multiple times. So have a clear message when communicating, have that clear goal that you're trying to achieve. Use all those metaphors and use all the same words, metaphors, and diagrams every time that you're coming back and presenting about and talking about this project. Also, pick a cool project name. That's great. Branding always helps. So yeah, we know that there is a lot of power in getting everyone speaking the same language, so help them speak the same language about this project as well. So so have I mentioned you have to repeat yourself? Yeah, so I just had to do lots of different variations on the same presentation until I got everyone on board about why we needed to do that ticket store project, for example. I did Q&A sessions with different departments and how that project would impact them, presentations, show and tell, and then always repeating the why we were doing it as I was talking about it. So making sure that you're selling this project and that it's not just an engineering project, it's a company-wide project. Okay, so how to run it? Everyone's on your side, it's time to start. But do you know where you're going, right? To help figure out and share with developers in your team, create a vision of a technical vision for the future. It doesn't have to be super detailed again, but the purpose really is to show an overview of the current systems, the ideal state that you're kind of going towards, the guidelines that you have to go towards that ideal state, and then you start taking the steps towards that as you start the project and you start learning about more about it. So technical architecture, which is kind of what this is not set in stone. Like, it's a process that you learn by doing and discovering. So what you need is to understand what the current state is, more or less where you're going, and then taking the first steps. The important thing as well is that your engineering team understands and they're engaged and excited about the future and they know why you're going there. So the steps to get there. Your first approach might be, let's throw those red boxes away. Let's start a green project. Greenfield, rewrite from scratch. What a dream, right? So what does it look like when you're rewriting an application from scratch? You usually have two teams. So the legacy team at the top here maintaining the legacy application, and then the one on the bottom is building the lovely greenfield one. So the legacy application is still out there and running, obviously, because it's bringing all the value and the money to the business, right? If we could turn it off, we wouldn't be writing it. And at the same time, the other team is building the new application until that's done and deployed, and we can get rid of the legacy application. Cool. Okay, great. It's easy to think about because you have a completely new application there, and you can just start and have all your fancy dreams about new technologies and all of that. But the biggest, there are lots of issues with this approach, but the biggest one is that you only get value, and you only get validation of what you're doing at the very end. So while you're at those phases there, before you deliver it, you don't know if what you're building is right, if the technology approach that you have is the correct one, or even if it is the product that you and your customers still want, right? You only discover that at the very end. This also makes it very difficult to switch priorities. Until this is truly done, the time that you invested before it's delivered hasn't paid back yet. Then the other thing is, before you deliver it, ultimately, I'm sure there will be new features that the rest of the company wants you to build. Because you haven't delivered the new application yet, you have to add to the legacy one, and you ended up growing it when you actually want to get rid of it. So rewrite from scratch is a waterfall process for rewrites. We don't build products like that anymore, so we shouldn't run technical migrations in the same way. And this is why most of those projects, are rarely finished. When faced with a priority change, the company will focus on what helps them survive and not that greenfield project that no one's using. But luckily, there's another way. Martin Fowler coined this a migration approach, the strangler application. So this is a strangler vine. It's a metaphor from this tree where it grows from the upper branches of another tree until it makes its way down to the soil, kind of replacing it. It's quite violent. But the strangler vine is your new application gradually replacing the legacy one. So in this approach, you have one team, usually, rewriting the functionality from the legacy application inside out until you can get rid of the legacy application and you have only the green one. So this approach doesn't necessarily mean that you're using the same project or even the same technology. Like, this is especially easier if you're doing web applications. You can link between the two. And because of that, is actually because you're rewriting within a legacy system, it's quite hard to think about it. It's, understand how while the rewrite is in progress, because you're kind of untangling that legacy system and you need to connect the two. So that's a lot harder to think about it during it. But the big positive is that you get value all for this process here. So as soon as you release the first slice of that rewrite, you're testing the complete end-to-end delivery of it. You're validating the technical approach that you chose. You're also validating any data migration that you might need to do, customer support, anything like that, end-to-end, monitoring, all of that will be tested at the first step there, that you release the first slide. This also means that there's a big incentive to pick the features by business priority, so the ones that are more important first, instead of by whatever the developers want to do first. And then when a requirement for a new feature comes in, you can release it in the new green application at any point here, and it's all golden. So I've used this triangular approach many times, and I highly recommend it. So here's an example of the internal tools project that I mentioned. So we had a page for listing orders and a page listing customers on a website, and this was used by the customer support team. So the red here is the legacy application using a legacy database. So what we did was taking end-to-end slices, focusing per user flow and per department, and we prioritized the ones that were used more frequently and were causing the most pain. Because not only was this a technical debt project, it was also a product and user experience debt. It was quite difficult to use as a front end, as a user experience. So we would write the new customers page in the new system that we had. We would release it to customers, so our customer support team in this case. They will try it out and test it. We'll tweak it and make sure it was great, and they understood it, how to use it. And after that feedback period, we will redirect all the users to the new flow. And after that, most importantly, we would remove that page and that flow and everything related to it from the legacy application. And then we would do that, repeating flow by flow. So the triangular approach allows you to adapt and change direction. It has better cost management, and you can pause it at any time in that flow, and you still have something better than what you had before. So if we had paused the project here, at least the customer listings page would be in a better state than the team before, than what we had before. Cool, okay, so during that songcake.com rewrite, the first one, we had a super bloated application. While we were trying to find the product market fit, we added lots and lots of features, so it was really hard to tell what was useful from what wasn't amongst all that code. So our first attempt of rewriting it, we were using this triangular pattern, but we were failing miserably. It was taking way too long to finish everything, because anytime that we started on a new page, we had to go to a product team or the design team and ask, does this work as it intended? This is really hard to maintain. Can we change it? Can we simplify it? Can we get rid of this? Is it still useful? Is this a bug or a feature? Like, that came up a lot. So we had all these questions all the time. What we realized is that we needed to use this rewrite as an opportunity to review the whole product and not just the code of that product. So what you really need, if you want to finish this project quickly, is to reduce the scope as much as you can and only focus on rewriting what's valuable. So what we did was a reset of that project, and with the rest of the leadership team, they identified what the main proposition of Songcake was, why users kept coming back, and those were the only features that we rewrote. So the must-have features that were the reasons why the users kept coming back, those are the ones that we consider the must-haves. The ones that were improvements on that, we consider should-haves, and we only touch them if we actually have any time. Probably, spoiler alert, we didn't. And then the things that we've learned that weren't as valuable anymore, we call them won't-haves. So this is a framework to identify value of features in a product. The thing to highlight here is that the must-haves, as I said, were only the main propositions, so we didn't have to ask the product managers. Like, we knew what the proposition was, we knew the features that were powering that. Those are the ones that we were writing, that's it. Anything else? Cut. And then the won't-haves were removed completely. So they weren't just left in the code, commented out maybe. No, just completely removed. We didn't leave anything behind that, just in case we wanted it back one day. So keep coming back to this, and I think this is why one of the reasons why this project was so successful is that we got to a good place really quickly because we reduced scope. So think about what would you build today knowing what you know now and only focus on rewriting that. Okay, so the project is going strong. There are some things to keep in mind. So you have that one goal. Make sure that you're doing one thing at a time. You have lots of different things that you know you want to do, but make sure that you're doing one thing and you're doing that end to end. So the biggest blocker that we had for that ticket store rewrite that I mentioned was the actual fact that we haven't finished. So we were doing a rewrite from scratch. We had two ticket stores. One of them was 80% done, but the 20% had no complete end in sight. So we applied that must-haves framework to it, and we were really ruthless. We cut everything else, really. And together with the sales team, created a plan to migrate the clients. So it wasn't a technical problem why we weren't using the new store. It was because the clients were still using the legacy one and we needed to migrate them. So that's the part where actually we had to go out to other departments and figure out how can we make customers to use the new product instead. So we did what we needed. It wasn't glamorous, but we had to do it in order to unblock ourselves and be able to do the work that we know we needed to do. Celebrate successes. So we did get rid of that ticket store, and when we did, the developers and the product managers wrote an obituary for it, and sent an email to the team. It was really sweet, but it was also a nice acknowledgement of all the value that that legacy project had brought. Oh, damn it. They really don't do this for women, do they? Okay. Cool, and then the other example, Songkick's incredible product designer, Kareem, created a game around the Strangler project of that internal tools project. So he mapped the team's goals and metrics to badges and achievements. So here are some of my favorite ones. So the 4-shift one was about the percentage of usage of a new product compared to the legacy one that was being strangled. So they printed all those behind where the team sat, and then they would celebrate with a party popper every time they achieved one, and it was really, really exciting. Yeah, to repeat yourself. Keep going back to that tech vision and the business goal of why you're doing that. Keep updating the teams and the whole company in the progress, and reminding everyone why you're doing this work. How to finish it? Great. Yeah, you won't. At least not completely, and it's okay. You'll find out a lot of things that you do want to change, and you won't be able to do everything. Priorities will change. You definitely won't have time to do everything that you know you want to do. But that's why you take an iterative approach, like the Strangler application. You break down the project as much as you can, and you deliver those end-to-end slices, and pick the changes with the highest impact first. After those 3 months of starting the rewrite of Songkick.com in 2011, we were able to decouple the front ends from the services, but there was still a lot we know we needed to do in that services to make those services better. But that unlocked the whole company to be able to innovate and create other products. So that was a good way to get us to a good place quickly without having to completely finish that rewrite. So the rewrite project, that time box project that you have, should be viewed as a one-time opportunity. It's focus time that you have to unblock yourselves and put all your efforts into unblocking yourself as quickly as you can. But then you need to find ways to keep that maintenance work happening under normal conditions, right? So you should use this opportunity, this rewrite, really as a valuable opportunity for learning and adopting good habits. I'm happy to say that we haven't had to rewrite the Songkick.com application since that rewrite in 2011, and that's still true as far as I know. And the store and internal tools improvements before I left, because I'm not working there anymore, were still in progress, but the products were being used and features were being added to the new applications during those rewrites. This is the reality, right? If you're supporting software that's being used, you need to change it, and you need to maintain that code. The important thing is to keep ahead of that entropy and keep it at a manageable level and reduce the amount of code that you have to maintain as much as you can. So how to not need it again? make that, I mentioned making the pain visible, make also the cost visible. So we know that maintaining software has a cost, but maybe for the rest of the company, it's not very clear, right? Once the project is done or the feature is delivered, they forget about it, right? So you need to find ways to highlight it. And one really simple way that I did was literally create a list of all the applications that we had, an inventory of every single service and front end that we needed to maintain, and then review that with the product managers. And together, we kind of identified what the level of maintenance of each of those should be. And we reviewed it every quarter, so it was always at the top of their minds when they were setting up their goals for the quarter. Code is only finished when it's not running in production anymore, so make sure that the code that you have is bringing enough value to justify its maintenance. And if not, delete. I mentioned before commenting out code. That code should be deleted. No commenting out code, please. We all use version control systems. Just delete code that you know is not used. Simple as that. But go a step further and make reviewing whole features and products as part of that conversation. So when we were talking about the maintenance levels of those applications, sometimes the answer was, well, we think this is not as valuable anymore. Maybe we should decommission it. And that's OK. It's part of the life cycle of a product or a feature. So you can delete products too. So yeah, you as an engineer should bring the cost of maintaining and the impact that it has in software development for those systems. And then product managers and the rest of the business should talk about the value that it brings. And then together, you can decide whether it's worth paying that cost and maintaining it, or it should be deprecated. If you make those decisions together, it also has the value that when you do want to invest more in maintainability in an area, it's not going to be a surprise to anyone because you've been talking about it. So constantly do this reevaluation, right? If you're rebuilding what you have today, what would you actually build and what you wouldn't, and then delete what you wouldn't. Yeah, and then to keep that software entropy under control, you need to keep thinking about how to support and encourage day-to-day cleanup. So it wasn't one bad decision or one big decision that broke this project. It was the one small decision at a time that created that hoarder's house, right? It's one box at a time that creates that hoarder's house, right? So you need to find ways to avoid that and to keep doing housekeeping and cleaning up. So create a discipline of making those small decisions to make things a little bit better every day. Refactor a little bit and often. Don't ask for permission to do it. Please just do it. If you're changing code, so you're fixing a bug or adding a feature, you know it's a priority to do that. So you know it's an area that's important. So make the code a little bit better while you're changing it. Make this part of your daily habit, and also educate others, like product managers and designers, that that's part of your work, and make sure that you're mentoring and coaching other developers that they are expected to do that as part of the work that they're doing day to day. Another big win for Songcake and for us was to adopt continuous delivery, delivering to production multiple times a day. Having that continuous deployment to production and a fast release cycle and making small changes just changed our mindset completely. It removes any frictions in making any small code changes and creates a confidence that you have as a developer to just delete something or refactor something, rename a method without the cost of having to wait for a big release or having to wait for lots of slow tests to run, right? We also worked off master of trunk, and that also meant that the fear of dreaded mergers was not there anymore. So we can see what everyone else is working on. And if you have to rename or move a method, you know that everyone will see that quite quickly, and it won't impact everyone else. So these two technical changes actually enabled a cultural change to the team. Like suddenly there were no more excuses to make even the smallest change. Get used to inconsistencies. So that's one that I had to learn how to get used to it. So you had that technical vision, the architecture of what you want the system to look like and be like, and it's always perfect. But it's never going to be that, right? Your code is never going to be finished or perfect in any way. That's not the goal, right? That's not the point. So if the project that you're working on is changing, it's valuable and it's changing, by definition, it's going to be changing and it's going to be evolving. So you're never going to reach that point. So get used to having some inconsistencies in the code base. The important thing is to have that shared technical vision of what good looks like and where you're going towards, an understanding of that with everyone in your team. And then when you're looking at the code, you make small changes towards that goal in improvements to get there. But it will never be perfect. I had to learn that. Cool. Okay. So this talk was about big rewrite projects, but really it's about how to build maintainable and sustainable technology and know when to invest in those technical projects with the business context in mind. So do it at the right time and with a clear business goal. Iterate on delivering end-to-end slices of it and reduce the scope as much as you can. That's the most important one. And once you're done, keep making your code better as part of your day-to-day work. Make software maintenance costs visible to everyone in the business, and part of that conversation when you're prioritizing and deciding what to do. You know, we're not hired to deliver just code, right? We're hired to deliver positive business impact with a bigger context. So understand where that comes from. Take responsibility for understanding your industry and what you're working for, so that you can make those open-eyed decisions, knowing when to cut corners maybe, but when to invest in maintainability as well. Thank you very much. Here are the songs if you missed them. Thank you. Do we have songs? Do we have time for questions? Yeah, 15 minutes. I don't know if I have any questions. Yeah. Is there a mic, or I can repeat it as well? Thank you. Hi.
Thanks, great talk. Half my clients are convinced that the full rewrite from scratch is the only solution that they can do.
Yeah.
I don't always succeed in convincing them. Do you have tips or ideas?
I think I would say try a time box spike on what you think could be an end-to-end version of that strangler for the application, and maybe just ask, if you ask for a week or 2 weeks to show something, and I can't really see you because of the light, but try time boxing a spike, and I think asking for a week or 2 is easier than saying we shouldn't do this. So I think that's what I would do. Yeah, you're here.
Thanks, great talk. I have many questions, but let's start just with one. What happened when the team that did the first application is just not there, and there is no knowledge of the application? And if you want to write, because you have to, the business doesn't understand what's happening, the code is low, and for example, I work in a finance application, and that's a big issue for us.
So you don't have the knowledge of what the
application... we don't understand what's happening and what there is in it, and there is no one to teach us.
Yeah.
So how do we start, and how do you encounter such contexts?
That big red box that we inherited was something like that. We had some people that we could ask, but it was still, it was big unknown. We tackled it from the customer in, so they know how they use it and what they use it for. For us, luckily, it was an internal customer, so it was the other departments that were using that tool. So we could go to them and ask, like, what do you do in this page? How do you use it? And then try to see if that would give us any clues about the code that was underneath that.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. I will just go with the second question, which is documentation, because that's exactly what we are going to do and what we are already doing, asking customers, asking users. How do you document that? Where do you put that? And who has ownership,
That's a whole nother talk, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. Don't worry.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Cool, I think there's another one there. Yeah. Cool.
Thanks for that. I've been involved in a few more rewrites than I care to admit, and I know at least 2 cases where within 6 or 7 years afterwards, people were talking about another rewrite. And I was listening to the list of things you were giving for how to avoid it happening again, and I don't want to belittle what you were saying in any way, but we definitely talked about those things at the time. And I think they didn't quite survive the test of time. I was wondering if you have any advice on, like, as people leave and new people come in and people forget about the war stories and how we got there in the first place.
That's an amazing part. I mean, that's one of the places where this talk came from. I did this internally, versions of this internally after a few years when we've forgotten about what we had done. So I think 2 things. Keep telling the story, like creating a story of what happened and why it happened and what you did, and then sharing that. And I think the culture of your team, so what you value and what you care about, that's the most important thing. So if you can get that right during that rewrite project and getting that clear and repeating that, I think that helps. So yeah, I think it's a lot more social than technical in that sense. Yeah. Cool. Any more questions? Yeah.
Hello. You said that we have to delete the whole code, but did you really manage to do that? Because I mean, when you rewrite from scratch, sometimes there is some functionality that you don't report in the new code, or if you rewrite in the old stuff, there is always some stuff that you cannot report.
You mean when you rewrite the new one, the old one, deleting it? Yeah, we did. I mean, we probably didn't do as perfect a job of deleting everything from the legacy project, but we definitely deleted the things that we could see that were related to the pages that we were rewriting for simplicity, I think, because the thing that we always had in mind is that we probably would have to stop that project at some point. We wouldn't be able to finish the whole thing. It was a big project. So we knew we had to stop at some point. So how can we stop at a point where we were not going to get confused about it if we had to start it again in a few months' time or a year's time? That makes sense? Yeah. So we did delete it, but maybe not everything, but we deleted enough to know that, okay, this page is not here anymore, or this model is not here anymore. Okay. Yeah. We can talk about more later. I love deleting code. Yeah, there's one there. One there.
Hi, thank you for the talk. You've talked about rewriting some code. What happens if you have to rewrite database schemas and your data is
database
and the database is split and you have big transactional between multiple schemas?
Yeah, so the first rewrite that I mentioned, the songcake.com one, we had to do it. So we ended up having, I can talk about more the kind of strategies to do that. So what we did was have some point of the new database and the legacy one, writing to both, and then reading from the new one, eventually making sure that it always looks like the same as the legacy one, and when you're happy with it, you can delete from the legacy one. It's a lot more work migrating data, for sure, and it's usually, the reason why we didn't do it for the internal tools one is because it was really tangled up, as you say, with transactions and all of that. So that is always the hard one, for sure, but it needs to happen at some point, yeah. Yeah, I can talk about more about strategies on doing that later. Cool. Anyone else? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, maybe him again. Yeah? Oh, okay.
I'll give it to her.
Okay. I'm curious about your question later then.
During the rewrite, did you get feedback from what you delivered? And did you deliver for everyone or just a little bit for small people?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we did both. So for the internal tools, because it was an internal application, we delivered for everyone, but we had both running at the same time. So we asked for the customer support team to test the new one, try to use it. We didn't force them to use the new one, but we kind of spent some time training them on it, and it's like, this is the new one. And once they were happy, we switched everyone to the new one. For the songcake.com one, which was for millions of users, we had the new service and the old service running at this in parallel and comparing that to make sure that it looked the same, it behaved the same. And then we released for percentage of users and then eventually for everyone. Yeah. But mostly for the, if you can avoid that, you should, because it's all more complexity, right? So, yeah. Cool. Anything else? One stupid question?
I'm old, so I'm not familiar with the Smiths. Who's the vomit guy, and why are we supposed to be forgetting about him?
He is the singer of the band. Oops. And he has a history of saying very xenophobic and sexist, horrible things. Yeah, and the guy on the right is the guitarist, and he's awesome. And yeah, I'm seeing him next weekend, so I'm very excited about that. The teenage self is very excited about that. So yeah, okay. That's that. But their songs, their music is still great. Cool. Anything else on that note? Cool. Thank you very much.